Rafa's birthday was held at a rooftop restaurant overlooking the Houston skyline. White tablecloths, gold balloons, and a band playing soft jazz like we were all pretending to be wealthier than we actually were. My mother had been planning it for weeks, posting teasers on Facebook like it was the event of the season. When I arrived, she greeted me with air kisses and a bright, brittle smile. "Izzy, sweetheart, you made it. Rafa's going to love your gift, my gift." Right. When he tore through the wrapping paper and pulled out the $20,000 Omega watch they'd bought. Him, for all his hard work. The entire table applauded. My mother dabbed her eyes with a napkin, whispering, "He deserves it. He's been through so much." Then she turned to me and slid a small, unevenly wrapped package across the table. "Just something thoughtful for you, too." Inside was a $5 lavender-scented candle. I recognized the tag. It came from the discount bin at Target. "Smells nice, doesn't it?" she said, eyes already shifting back to Rafa as he flexed his wrist under the restaurant lights. I smiled tightly. The candle sat in my lap like a secret joke. My champagne fizzed and flattened. "Rafa's new crypto venture is going to change everything," Mom bragged to the guests, her voice full of practiced pride. Dad chuckled, adding, "Izzy, you should learn from your brother. Take some risks instead of hiding behind a computer screen." Their words slid off me, but the burn still came. I focused on the bubbles dissolving in my glass, the way the laughter at the table got louder when I stayed quiet. I remembered my graduation day, standing in a sea of black caps, my name echoing through the speakers while the camera panned over the empty row where they were supposed to sit. Rafa leaned back in his chair, tapping his new watch. "So, Izzy," he said, smirking, "you're doing numbers or something, right? How's that going?" I looked up, my voice calm. "Pretty good. My new contract pays $120,000 a year." The table went silent. My mother blinked, her smile faltering for half a second before she recovered with syrupy sweetness. "Well, maybe you could help Rafa with his business loan, I took a slow sip of champagne, hiding the tremor in my hand. The bubbles were gone, but the burn remained. I smiled. I stopped being afraid a long time ago. When I was 10, I won my school's science fair with a project about solar-powered irrigation. I'd built it out of scrap plastic bottles and an old fan motor Dad had thrown out. The prize was a small gold trophy that glimmered like sunlight itself, and I waited in the gym bleachers for my parents to arrive. I kept glancing at the door, convinced I'd see them walk in at any minute. They never did. Later that night, I found them in the living room, cheering for Rafa's soccer game highlights. He'd scored 1 goal. "You should have seen it, Izzy," Mom said, clapping her hands. "He's going places." I nodded and said nothing. I placed my trophy quietly on the bookshelf. 2 days later, it was gone, moved somewhere for space. I found it months later in a donation box in the garage. At 15, Rafa crashed my laptop trying to install some cracked version of a shooting game. It was my only device for school projects, and it died completely. When I told my parents, Dad sighed like I was overreacting. A week later, a brand new console arrived for Rafa's good behavior. My computer was never replaced. I finished sophomore year on borrowed library PCs that shut down every hour. At 18, the envelope came. UCLA, full scholarship. I ran into the kitchen, waving it like a flag of victory. Mom looked up from her phone and smiled absently. "That's good," she said. "One less bill for us." Rafa popped his head in from the hallway, asking if he could borrow the car. I stood there holding my letter, realizing no one cared enough to even read it. College was supposed to fix everything. I told myself if I worked hard enough, they'd see me. But every call home ended the same way. Updates about Rafa's startup, his grind, his potential. When I said I was working 2 part-time jobs to cover rent, Dad just said, "That's what independence looks like." They promised to come to my graduation. I sent reminders, flight options, even bought them a hotel voucher. The day arrived, and when I looked into the crowd from the stage, their seats were empty. I smiled for the camera anyway, holding my diploma like proof of existence. Later that night, a text arrived. "So proud, sweetie. Rafa's launch went amazing today." That was the moment I stopped waiting for them. But the final break came senior year, when I logged into my savings account to pay for my thesis printing. The balance was zero, a withdrawal labeled Morales family transfer. I called Mom in a panic. "Oh, don't make a big deal," she said, her tone clipped. "Your brother needed an investor for his app. We'll pay you back." They never did. Rafa's fitness app failed within months. That night, I packed up my dorm room and promised myself I'd never ask them for another thing. Not money, not time, not love. When graduation came, I sent one last photo, me in my cap and gown, holding my diploma under the California sun. Their reply came hours later. "Looks great, mija. Rafa's business got featured today." I looked at that text until it blurred. That was the day I stopped asking them to choose me. 11 years later, my life looked nothing like theirs. I'd moved to Austin right after college, taking a junior data analyst role at a healthcare startup. Every year, I climbed higher. First analyst, then senior, then project lead. I learned to speak in numbers, revenue, performance metrics, results. Numbers never lied. People did. Therapy helped me unpack the things I'd buried, how every achievement felt like a test, how love had always been conditional. My therapist called it narcissistic family dynamics. I just called it exhaustion. Leah came into my life during a late-night project sprint. She brought coffee, cracked jokes, and didn't flinch when I talked about the family-shaped silence that followed me. On my 30th birthday, she showed up with a homemade cake and a sticky note that said, "You're worth celebrating." It was the first time I believed it. By the time Forbes called for an interview, top women in tech under 35, I'd built a name that even my parents couldn't ignore. The photo they used showed me smiling in front of my company's logo, my silver USB necklace glinting at my collarbone. I looked confident, unbothered, whole. But that night, when I saw the article go live, I whispered to myself, I built a life from numbers, but every figure I earned reminded me of what I never received freely: love. The email hit at 8:43 a.m. "Congratulations, Isabel Morales. Effective immediately. You are promoted to senior analyst, salary adjusted to $120,000 annually." For a moment, I just stared at the screen. Then I laughed, the kind of laugh that comes out as a tremor. Not joy exactly, something older, harder. I leaned back in my chair and let the weight of the number sink in. 120,000. The same number my father once said I'd never see unless I married someone successful. By noon, my desk was covered in balloons, cupcakes, and a card signed by my team. Leah had drawn a tiny cartoon of me standing on a mountain of spreadsheets, holding a flag that said, "Boss Mode." That night, we celebrated at a little rooftop bar in Austin. Not fancy, just real. Leah raised her glass. "To family by choice," she said, looking at me with that warm, steady gaze. "To family by choice," I echoed. And I meant it. The next week, I signed the papers for my first home, a $310,000 condo overlooking Lady Bird Lake. It was modern, simple, and mine. I stood in the empty living room, sunlight painting gold stripes across the hardwood floor, and whispered, "You did this." The car came next, a $55,000 hybrid SUV, quiet as confidence. I didn't tell anyone, not even Leah, until she saw it in the parking lot and shrieked, "Girl, you drive like success smells!" We laughed until my stomach hurt. For once, everything in my life felt balanced, not loud or dramatic, just mine. When I posted about my promotion online, it was supposed to be small. A short reflection. From being the forgotten kid to leading a team that saved $8.7 million in healthcare costs. Here's to growth. I closed the app and went about my day. But by evening, the post had gone viral. Old classmates commented, coworkers shared it. Then I saw her name. Carmen Morales commented, "So proud of our daughter. She's always been a genius." I froze. My throat went dry. My mother, who once called my scholarship one less bill, was now basking in the digital glow of my success. Her comment had thousands of likes. Then my DMs pinged. "Mom, sweetheart, could we come visit this weekend? Your dad's been meaning to see you." I stared at the message. That tone, sugar on glass. It wasn't love. It was Need. My stomach twisted. Something was coming. The call came the next evening. I almost didn't answer. "Hi, Mom." Her voice cracked, soft at first, like she'd been crying. "Izzy, we've been meaning to talk to you." "It's Rafa. He's in trouble." My jaw tightened. "What kind of trouble?" There was a pause. Then my father's voice, faint in the background. "Just tell her, Carmen." Mom sniffled. "His crypto business. It collapsed. Everything's gone. The house, well, we're behind on payments. 60,000 in debt. They might take it." The silence between us stretched thin as wire. Then came the familiar pivot. "You're doing so well now," she said, her tone trembling between guilt and expectation. "Maybe you could help us, just until things stabilize." For a moment I could hear my own heartbeat. I looked around my new home, the boxes still half unpacked, the faint echo of freedom in the walls, and felt the cold rush of something sharp but steady. I took a slow breath. "Sure, Mom," I said. "Let's meet, in person." Because if I'd learned anything in the past 11 years, it was this. They never came to see me unless there was something to take. But this time, I wasn't the same girl who watched her name echo across an empty auditorium. This time, they would remember. The elevator doors slid open with a soft chime, and the warm glow of the rooftop restaurant spilled over polished marble. The view stretched across downtown Austin, amber sky melting into steel and glass. Izzy adjusted her navy blazer, smoothed her sleeve, and walked out, heels steady, Tesla key fob glinting like punctuation in her hand. They were already there. Her mother's bright coral blouse looked strained under the tension of her forced smile. Her father sat stiff, a whiskey glass half empty in front of him. Rafa, loud, restless, leaned back with the same careless swagger he'd always worn when he thought the world would bend for him. "Look at you," her mother said, standing for a hug Izzy didn't return. "You've gotten so thin." "That suit, it's very professional." Rafa smirked. "Damn, sis. Look at you finally being the rich sibling." Izzy smiled faintly, the kind that didn't reach her eyes. "Guess miracles happen." They all laughed awkwardly as the waiter poured sparkling water. Small talk filled the air, light, brittle. Her father asked about the weather in Austin as if he hadn't read the news of her promotion. Rafa rambled about a new crypto partnership that was definitely going to bounce back. And then, right on cue, her mother leaned forward. The pitch was coming. "So," Carmen began, lacing her fingers, "we've been trying to figure things out. We just need a bit of help to get back on our feet. About 75,000 should cover the house and the taxes. You know how family should help family." Izzy tilted her glass, watching the bubbles rise and pop. "Family should show up too." Carmen blinked. "Excuse me." Izzy's voice stayed calm. "When I won the science fair, when I got my scholarship, when I graduated, you didn't show up for any of it. But here we are." Her father sighed, rubbing his temple. "We did our best. You know how things were. Rafa just needs a second chance, that's all." "You've always been the strong one, mija," Carmen added softly. "We knew you'd be fine." Izzy reached into her bag and pulled out a small silver USB drive. It gleamed under the restaurant's soft light. She set it gently on the table. "Let me show you something." Her laptop screen reflected in their faces as she opened folders, one by one. A photo, her in cap and gown, standing alone, smiling through empty chairs. A PDF, bank statement showing a $4,800 withdrawal from her savings account, authorized by Izzy Morales. A text message screenshot. "You'll understand one day. Rafa needs this more." A folder labeled Years Missed, birthdays, calls, unanswered messages. The glow of the screen cast their silence in blue. Her father finally whispered, "You kept all this?" Izzy looked up. "No," she said evenly. "It kept me." Carmen's eyes darted across the screen, her face tightening with every image. "You don't understand, we had to make choices. Rafa's business was always more important than me," Izzy finished for her. "Don't twist this," her father snapped. "We did what any parents would do. You're successful because we taught you how to be independent." Izzy's laugh was soft, bitter. "You didn't teach me independence. You abandoned me and called it faith. The air thickened. Rafa slammed his fist on the table, silverware rattling. Jesus, Izzy, you think you're perfect now? You think money makes you better than us? She turned to him, her expression unreadable. No, I think accountability does. Then quietly, she pulled a white envelope from her bag and placed it beside the USB. This, she said, is a $50,000 donation to the Women in STEM Foundation. It's in Leah Tran's name, my best friend, the one who showed up when you didn't. Her mother blinked. What? It's already processed, Izzy continued. Legally allocated. That opportunity to help has passed. For a moment, the table was still. Then Carmen's voice broke through, sharp and trembling. You'd rather give money to strangers than your own blood? Izzy's tone was soft, almost kind. Blood makes you related. Love makes you family. Carmen's face twisted. You're cruel. No, Izzy said, standing, slipping her laptop into her bag. I just learned from the best. Rafa rose too, anger coloring his cheeks. You think this makes you powerful? You're pathetic. You'll die alone with your spreadsheets. Izzy met his glare, unshaken. At least I'll die debt-free. The surrounding tables had gone silent now. Waiters exchanged uneasy glances. The hum of the city below felt distant, muffled. Her father's voice broke the quiet. Izzy, please. We're still your parents. She looked at them one last time. Their faces, once the axis of her world, now small and ordinary. You were, she said. But I outgrew needing parents who only love me when it's convenient. She picked up her coat, her Tesla keys glinting under the low light, and left the USB sitting in the middle of the table. Not for them to learn from. She knew they wouldn't. But as a mirror, a reminder of everything they'd chosen to ignore. As she walked toward the elevator, the night air wrapped around her like closure. Her phone buzzed, a message from Leah. Leah. Dinner still on tomorrow? Izzy. Yeah, my treat. Her reflection caught in the glass doors. Steady, sharp, free. Behind her, the rooftop was still buzzing with voices, but none of them mattered anymore. She smiled faintly as the elevator descended, whispering under her breath. I stopped being afraid a long time ago. And for the first time, she knew she wasn't saying it to convince herself. 3 days passed before she even opened her phone again. 47 missed calls, 22 unread texts. The first few were from her mother. Izzy, please call us. We didn't mean for things to get ugly. You embarrassed your brother in public. People were watching. Then came the guilt-soaked messages from cousins, aunts, uncles, people who hadn't spoken to her in years. How could you humiliate your parents like that? They're heartbroken. Rafa's depressed. Family is everything, Isabel. Izzy scrolled through them on her lunch break, sitting in her quiet office overlooking the city. For the first time, she didn't feel small under their words. She felt untouchable. That afternoon, Leah appeared at her doorway holding 2 coffees. You good? Izzy smiled faintly. Yeah, I think I'm finally good. But the storm wasn't done. That night, Carmen posted on Facebook. The status was long, dramatic, and public. Some kids forget who raised them. They think money replaces love. We did our best, but some hearts grow cold. It had over 300 reactions in an hour. Old neighbors chimed in. People who only knew fragments of the truth. Izzy's name wasn't mentioned, but everyone knew. By morning, her boss had seen it. He called her into his office, closed the door, and said quietly, Hey, I saw that post. Just so you know, we're behind you. HR's already filtering any harassment that comes through your LinkedIn or email. Izzy blinked, surprised. Thank you, he shrugged. You've earned your peace. Don't let anyone steal it. The next week, her attorney sent out a 1-page legal notice. Cease and desist for online defamation and harassment. Simple, professional, final. Her mother never posted again. A month rolled by. Leaves turned gold, the air shifted cooler. The noise faded. And then, one morning, her inbox lit up. Subject, Forbes Women in Tech. Feature approval. She opened it slowly, breath-catching as she read. Your donation to the Women in STEM Foundation has inspired over 2,000 mentorship signups nationwide. We'd love to feature your story in our next issue. The article went live the following week. Her photo, confident, smiling in front of her company's glass office, sat beside the headline, "From Forgotten Daughter to Force for Change, How Izzy Morales is Paying It Forward." The comments poured in. "You're an inspiration." This hit close to home. "Thank you for showing us we can rise above toxic families. Because of you, I applied for a STEM scholarship." Her DMs overflowed with gratitude. Teen girls, single mothers, women who'd been dismissed or overlooked, all telling her they saw themselves in her story. Every message was a small healing stitch, sewing something back together inside her. Meanwhile, word drifted back through relatives. The Morales house had gone into foreclosure. Rafa had filed for bankruptcy. Her parents were renting a small apartment now, on the edge of Houston. Izzy didn't smile when she heard. She didn't feel triumphant, just still. One night, she stood on her balcony overlooking Austin's skyline. City lights shimmered below, and the air carried that quiet hum of freedom she used to only dream about. Leah called. "You okay?" Izzy nodded, even though her friend couldn't see. "Yeah, just thinking. About them?" "A little, but mostly about me." There was a pause, soft and understanding. "You did the right thing." Izzy watched a plane blink across the night sky. "Justice isn't about watching them fall," she said slowly. "It's about rising without them pulling me down again." For once, saying it didn't feel like defiance. It felt like truth. She stayed out there a long time, the city humming beneath her feet, the past finally quiet. Inside, her phone buzzed again. Another DM, this one from a young engineer in Manila. "Because of your story, I didn't give up on my degree." "Thank you," Izzy smiled, eyes soft. She closed the message, turned off her phone, and let the night wrap around her like peace earned the hard way. And when the wind brushed her hair, she could almost hear the voice of her younger self, the girl who once sat alone at graduation, whisper, "We made it." 18 months later, the auditorium hummed with quiet excitement. Rows of students, parents, and teachers filled the seats, the air buzzing with promise. At the front, a banner stretched across the wall. The Leah Tran STEM Scholarship, Empowering Women Who Build. Izzy stood at the podium, hands steady, voice clear. "When I was 19, she began, smiling softly at the crowd, "I thought success meant proving people wrong. Now I know it means lifting others up." A ripple of applause moved through the room. Cameras clicked. She turned to the young woman. Standing beside her, a bright-eyed Latina freshman from El Paso named Sofia Ruiz. The girl's hands trembled as Izzy handed her the award envelope and shook her hand. "Keep building," Izzy whispered. "The world needs your kind of mind," Sofia beamed. "Thank you, Ms. Morales. I'll make you proud." "You already did." When the ceremony ended, guests gathered for photos, laughter, and cake. Leah stood off to the side, holding 2 cups of lemonade, grinning from ear to ear. "Well, boss lady," she said, handing Izzy a drink. "You did it. The first Leah Tran scholarship. You named it after me, but I think this is your legacy." Izzy smiled. "No," she said, looking out over the sea of students. "It's ours." Outside, the Texas sun poured gold across the courtyard. The air smelled faintly of dust and wildflowers. Izzy stepped out, heels crunching softly on the gravel. The wind lifted her hair as she looked up at the foundation's modest glass building. Her building. She reached up and touched the small silver USB pendant resting at her throat. It had become a habit, a quiet reminder of everything she carried and everything she chose to let go. Her phone buzzed. The screen lit up. Mom. She stared at the name for a moment, the familiar ache flickering and fading just as quickly. No anger, no longing, just clarity. She swiped left and deleted the message without opening it. Leah joined her outside. "You okay?" Izzy nodded, watching a group of scholarship students laughing by the steps. "Yeah," she said quietly. "I'm not responsible for fixing them." Leah's hand brushed her shoulder, warm and steady. "You never were." They stood there for a long while, the noise of the celebration soft behind them. Then Izzy turned, picking up a small sapling from a pot nearby, an oak, its roots bound in burlap. She knelt in the soil just beyond the foundation's entrance, her navy suit sleeves rolled up, dirt beneath her nails. "Something for the next generation to grow under," Leah murmured. Izzy smiled faintly, something that won't need to be uprooted to thrive. She pressed the soil around the trunk, firm and sure. The sun warmed her shoulders, the breeze lifting her hair like a quiet benediction. When she stood, her reflection shimmered faintly in the glass doors. Not the girl who once waited for her parents to show up, but a woman who had built her own ground to stand on. Behind her, laughter. Ahead, light, and in between, roots, deep, steady, and finally her own.